Alright, so I wanted to do a quick video here. I've got some upgrades on my rifle. I did one video on the TACOM carbine recoil system and enhanced lightened buffer and buffer spring. And so I want to do a little tabletop on the another core component of this upgrade, which is the Brownells low mass, or low weight, I guess they call it, bolt carrier group. So I'm going to go ahead and take out my takedown pin and just remove, this is the Brownells bolt carrier group, and adjust the camera here so you can see the table. So out front here is my WMD nib coated full auto mil spec bolt carrier. This is my first bolt carrier from this rifle when I built it a few years ago. You know, it's got a couple thousand rounds as I kind of built this rifle over time. You know, so I don't have a ton of shots fired with this gun, but you know, this has at least a couple thousand rounds through it. And you can see that nib coating. See if I can get a little more light on this. The nib coating's a little clouded, which is to be expected, but this has no oil on it right now. I pulled it out and ran it under you know, boiling water, did a real thorough cleaning on it, and even with no oil on this at all, it's super smooth. The fit and finish has held up great. Great full auto mil spec bolt carrier for a home defense, self-defense, AR-15. This is a great bolt and not super expensive, you know, under 150 bucks. So I would definitely do this again, and I'll probably have a little bit more of a review on this at a little later time. I'm kind of focusing on my 3-gun setup and some of the new changes I've been doing. But this bolt will find its way back into this gun or a new gun. I might build up a pistol, or, you know, a specific gun for just kind of a home defense weapon. This will be in that gun when it happens. Very reliable. So that's the standard one. This is the new one that I just got, the Brownells low weight bolt carrier group. This is the black nitride finish. $99 for this bolt, and I'm super impressed with the finish and the fit. You know, for that price point. The real advantage to this is how much lighter it is. You can see, particularly up front here, how much metal they've removed on the top as well as the sides. You know, so you're saving 25 to 30% in the weight by going to the Brownells. It's a standard mil spec steel bolt, so that's not lightened at all. That's, you know, so you're gonna get the reliability of a full weight bolt. And then this is, like I said, the black nitride finish. They also offer it in the nib, the silver nib, as well as the gold tin coating. I want the black nitride. I'm kind of changing my gun over to an all black color with some blue, and so I went with the black instead of the nib on it, but I was kind of between those two. The black was the cheapest at $99. I think the nib was $120, and the tin was maybe a little bit more than that. But very smooth. The fit here, you know, I haven't shot this yet, so this is, you know, only been oiled the one time. I, you know, didn't do a super thorough cleaning when I unpackaged it. Just kind of wiped it. I took it apart and wiped it down, and then, you know, put some gun oil on here, and very smooth, but a little tight. And I don't know if that'll, you know, that might be a good thing. You know, the bolt to carrier fit, you know, you'd have to tell me if that's better or worse, but it is super smooth. This one moves a little easier, and so we'll see if you know, when I start to shoot this, if that loosens up a little bit and smooths out even more. But there's no grittiness, you know, it's very, very smooth. This one just moves a little easier. And like I said, there's a little wobble here, which, you know, actually might be a bad thing. So I don't know. You tell me if you know. But very nice lock up and smooth enough for my purposes, I believe. And for $99, you know, if it functions, I'm gonna be happy with it. So the main purpose of this was to see if a low mass bolt made a big enough difference in felt recoil and muzzle rise to justify moving to a really high-end, low-weight, low-mass bolt carrier. The ones I had been looking at were about $350, and that was a little too much for me to bite off without knowing what was going to happen. So I randomly ran into someone talking about this product for $99 in a forum, and I said, at $99, I can make that happen. So this, I'll get my scale out here, and you might not be able to see the numbers, but I'll read them to you. The full mass bolt is 11.64 ounces. Now, the Brownells is listed at 8.9 on the website. I actually get, with this, a little under 8.2, so 8.18. So more than a half ounce lighter than what they even listed on the website. So with listed weights, it's about a 25% reduction in weight, but actual weights, I'm actually closer to 30%, I believe. I didn't calculate that out, but at least 25%, closer to 30%, I believe, reduced weight. So you're talking a couple of ounces in hand. That doesn't feel like a whole lot. You know, you can feel the difference between the two, but, you know, not a huge difference. But that percentage, as far as what the reciprocating weight in your gun is pretty substantial. You know, 30% savings is going to, hopefully, the thought is, help that muzzle rise and felt recoil to make this a really flat shooting 3-gun rifle, which is the purpose of this rifle for me now, and is why I'm going through changing out some of these parts. So you saw the easy install, and again, with a lot of these parts, if you don't know how to take your bolt in and out, you're probably not watching this video, because, you know, usually this is a little bit past you know, the point where you haven't taken your bolt out if you're looking at doing an upgrade like this. But just for, you know, just to show it, I'll cycle it a few times in the gun, just so you can see how smooth it is. You know, so here's the mil-spec nibbed bolt that I've been using, a few thousand rounds. You know, nice and smooth, good lockup, you know, easy lockup, hardly any force to get in and out there. Everything feels great. And then pop that out. Pop in the Brownells carrier. And, you know, perceives feel, it actually might feel a little smoother. You know, it seems, audibly seems a little different maybe too, but you know, that fit is good. And again, you know, you hardly need anything to lock this into place. So you're looking at a good solid bolt carry here from initial fit and finish. I'm super happy with it. So that's going to be about it for this video. Just a brief tabletop review of this in comparison to a mil-spec bolt carrier group. And the next video, I am taking this gun to the range. I got to tune the gas system to fit this bolt, and also with the new buffer, lightened buffer and buffer springs from Tacom. I'm going to get some before and after shots, so hopefully you'll get some hard data, hands-on data for how much this bolt is helping me. Again, very important to note, you need, almost required, to have an adjustable gas block to run this. Running this on full gas you're not going to see any benefits. You might see harder recoil because it's going to be slamming that lighter bolt a little bit harder. If you're over gassing it, it's going to be easier to over gas it with this lightweight bolt. So adjustable gas block, I'm using the JP Enterprises adjustable gas block, but you have to have one. They typically range, for good brand names, $60 to probably $100, $150. I'm not sure what the most expensive ones are. JP's just under $100, and there's a few other ones in that $70 to $80 range that would be just as good. But anyways, my goal is to run the mil-spec buffer and spring and this bolt, the standard mil-spec bolt, which that's how this gun is set up right now. That's the gas is adjusted to cycle that with my rounds that I use in 3-gun. So then I know that that's properly set up for this. Then I'm going to swap out the buffer and springs for the lightened buffer and reduced tension recoil springs from Tacom, and I'm going to retune the gas, still using the mil-spec bolt, and I'm going to see how much less gas I can use to cycle the bolt and see if there's any perceived difference in recoil or muzzle rise. Then I'll swap, while using the better buffer and spring, or lighter buffer and springs, I'll swap in the last piece to this, which is the low weight buffer or low weight bolt carrier group, and see how much less gas, retune again, and see how much less gas I need to run that. And hopefully you'll be able to see, okay, I've got an adjustable gas block, I've got a regular full mass bolt. Is that $50 to run the reduced buffer and spring justified if I can lose 10% of gas or whatever? That might be the case. And then once that's done, how much gas can further be reduced out of the system by spending $100 on the Brownells bolt carrier group, and we'll see if that's justified to you and to me, because I haven't fired this system yet with the springs or the new bolt. And then for me personally, what I want to gain from that is, okay, I saved 30% of weight going from this to the Brownells bolt. The real high-end bolt carrier groups, I can shave another, ounce or two off that bolt carrier group weight. So maybe an additional 10% or 15%. If I see a big jump by going from the full weight to this low weight, then maybe I'm justified eventually spending big bucks to go really light on the bolt carrier group and see even more of an advantage. I'm a little skeptical that that's going to be the case. 223 as my cartridge, a good muzzle brake, which is, this is also a new part that I'm going to be shooting for the first time. The VG6 Epsilon muzzle brake compensator. So between the 223 and this muzzle brake, that it's already a flat shooting gun. You can shoot pretty fast just because it's a low power cartridge or a low recoil cartridge, and with a good brake. So that might be enough right there to not really justify putting a whole lot more money into it. The springs being cheap, I think that's a no-brainer. So that I feel like I'm gonna justify that money pretty easily because it's not a lot of money to put into a gun. And then, but I'm skeptical that I think I'll get the $100 worth of advantage by switching to this Brownells low weight carrier, but I don't know that I'm going to see enough advantage to spend another $300 or so to jump down even lighter on the bolt. So, but we'll see. We'll see what the difference is, and if it doesn't help me spend a lot of money on a bolt, maybe you'll see my $100 investment improve my gun enough to where you'll make the jump, and because that's what we're all looking for, right? Is a justification to buy the real fancy equipment. So we'll see, and the next video here I'll have this gun at the range, and we'll get a little bit more active in the review process. All right, so I'm back from the range. I've got a few shots, you saw in the previous clips here, of me tuning the gas on this gun. After putting in the new buffer and buffer spring from TACOM, and then the Brownells low mass bolt carrier group here. And I kind of wanted to come back and just kind of give you my impressions of whether these upgrades were worth it, my thoughts on how the gun shot. So I have, that little bit of range time tuning the gun, and then, a few hundred rounds, probably like 100, 150 rounds at the 3-gun practice through this gun now with the upgrades. And so I feel, obviously, longevity, I won't be able to speak to the longevity of, say, this bolt carrier group as compared to a more expensive one, but initial impressions of how the gun shoots, I'm fairly confident that I can give a decent review on that. My original setup, which was a mil-spec carbine buffer spring and carbine buffer and a full mass bolt carrier group, was on my JP adjustable gas block, was tuned to 4.5 turns from open, from fully closed to, and the bolt cycled incredibly reliably. So I'm assuming 4.5 turns was pretty close to wide open. When I did tune that originally, I did not notice a huge gain in felt recoil, so it helped a little bit, but not a huge gain. So I think I was pretty close to wide open at that point. But then the first thing with, as it pertains to this video, is I swapped out the springs and was still, the spring and the buffer, and was still using my mil-spec full weight bolt carrier group. Then I tuned the gas to that to see what effect the TACOM springs and buffer would have. And I finally settled on 3.5 turns open. So a full turn closed over what it was with, my gun stock before the changes. Again, I'm not an expert on how much each turn equates to how much gas is going into the gun. I don't know if it's an exact science anyways, but I'm just going to say, it went from 4.5 turns to 3.5 turns. And then I shot the gun. I did a few double tap strings and stuff like that, and it was a pretty noticeable difference as far as how flat the gun was, and the felt recoil dropped quite a bit. So I was happy with that. I was happy to tune it down a full turn in the gas on the gas block, and for 40 or 50 bucks shipped, totally worth it. That's they're not really any more expensive than, much more expensive than just your normal mil-spec buffer and springs. So, to me, that's for sure. If you have an adjustable gas block, just get the TACOM carbine recoil system. It does a great job for the money. And then from there, I swapped in the Brownells bolt carrier group, low weight bolt carrier group, which I showed you earlier in this video, and then retuned the gas. But I ended up at 3.25 turns, so I only gained a quarter turn, as far as reducing the gas running through this gun by swapping in the low weight bolt carrier. So I was hoping for at least a half a turn less gas. So then I went from the range to the indoor range where I was making these changes to the outdoor range where they had the 3-gun stage set up, and where I think you're gaining in the practical aspect. This is where the $100 on this low weight bolt carrier group probably are more justified. Is that in that practical moving around, shooting fast, like you would in a 3-gun stage, the overall recoil on the gun is basically nothing. It shoots like a BB gun, other than the concussion and how loud it is. I mean, the gun hardly moves at all. Even someone like me, I'm not great at controlling and wielding this gun. I just noticed a big difference overall with the changes, and so I think I was more happy after that session that I did the springs, the brake, and the BCG, because on paper the BCG maybe isn't worth it over a mil spec full weight BCG, but you know, but practically speaking, you know, the total amount of money I have in those three items, that, and you know, that was huge. So I would do it again. Now, here's the ultimate question, I guess, and the one I posed earlier was, would, of these changes, you know, would I now make the move from this cheaper Brownells $99 low weight buffer, 8.2 ounces, would I spend the big money on a big name brand that would maybe be a little bit lighter? So the other one that I was looking at, I'll go ahead and just say the brand name is Iron City's Gen 2 competition bolts. Would be probably where I would go. There's lighter ones than those if you get into like the aluminum bolt carriers and stuff that JP makes and some other companies make, and some other more exotic metals that are probably better than aluminum. But for a steel bolt, the Iron City is one of the lighter ones, and I think it's like 7.8 or 7.9 ounces. So, you know, less than a half an ounce, I think, lighter than this bolt. And so would it be worth it, based on the gains I see from this, to go to that bolt? And based on the weight alone, I would say no, for me. Maybe if I was starting fresh on a gun, building up a nice gun where I wanted to go, you know, pretty high end with everything, I would go ahead and do that, because they're great. They're great bolts from everything I've heard. But for the purpose of this gun, a 3-gun, going to get tossed around, you know, in the stage of my shooting that I'm at right now, from a skill standpoint, I don't think I'll be in a rush to swap out this cheaper bolt with a more expensive one. But that being said, the Iron City ones in particular have they have really awesome proprietary coatings. They have nib and tin and all that stuff, but the one that I was looking at, which is their black diamond, I believe, coated bolt carrier group, has an extremely low coefficient of friction, substantially less friction than even their other really nice bolt carriers. So that's still enticing. You know, if this lowered me a quarter and a little bit of extra, and maybe could push it down to a half a turn, their bolt carrier by weight could probably get me to a half a turn less gas, and then maybe that coating gives me a little bit more. Now, if I could get a half turn or more less gas than what this one runs, you know, then I would consider making that jump. So it's still an interesting thought, but for how much I shoot and my skill level, I think this bolt is a fantastic deal, and I would go this route. I don't think it's 100% necessary. Like I said, I think I gained a little bit more by changing the springs and buffer, but totally worth it for me.